Thank you for listening to the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast. I upload this podcast on the Anchor podcast platform. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor distributes the podcast for me so you can hear it on Spotify or Apple or wherever you are listening. And you can make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything that you need to make a podcast in one place. You can download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Good morning and welcome back to the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Wolt, and today we are going to get to meet a pair of music-loving co-founders, co-head coffee roasters, and the co-people who founded VCR, or Visitor Coffee Roasters, out of South San Diego County. Seth Wellens and Will Holder are the brain trust behind VCR. Having two head roasters is kind of unique in the coffee roasting industry. And after talking to them, I brewed some of their Rebel blend and wondered which of the two roasted it. They have a lot in common, including years of working in hospitality together and a love for music. However, only one of them remembers what it was like to pop a blank TDK cassette tape into the stereo to record the latest hits off the radio. For our younger audience, a cassette tape is a rectangular plastic container that contains a film-like tape that music used to be recorded on. If you've heard your parents or grandparents talk about film for a camera or a movie, it's kind of like that. Also, the radio, how to explain this? There are these waves traveling through the air, and you know what? This show is about coffee, so let's get back to it. While you're listening today, take a moment to follow at Visitor Coffee Roasters on Instagram or head to visitorcoffeeroasters.com to check out some of the illustrations from Fermin Caridad and the design from Orange and Park because their branding is definitely on point. But don't forget to fill your coffee mug with some good coffee because here is the show. I do have a coffee cocktail. Normally I do this stuff in the morning, and so I was excited about that. I'm drinking a Maker's Mark and First Light Coffee Whiskey blend.
Ooh, very nice.
This afternoon. How about you guys?
That sounds really good. We're drinking
some 394. Actually, this shirt
394 AleSmith.
But it's in a coffee mug, so that counts.
Exactly. The beauty of coffee mugs. You'll never know.
We could do it in cans. We'll just put them in some cups. It's just a little bit classier that way.
It is classier.
Yeah. I was going to say, that's Will.
I was going to say, if you could, I can see you, but for people listening, could you just introduce yourself so they can recognize your voice?
Yeah, this is Will Holder here, half of Visitor.
And my name is Seth Wellens. I am the other half.
Two halves equal a whole.
They do look like a whole pair of people. I want to get started with something really easy and just kind of talk about the two of you and how you guys met, and then if you guys had independently kind of a first experience with coffee that got you excited about it.
Yeah, so we both worked at Tartine in Coronado, a restaurant over there, for years. I think we each worked about 7 years there. So what was that, like 11 years ago at this point? I met you, and
trying to do the math of how old I am and when I started there.
It was a while ago.
About 13 years ago.
It's a little late for math, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we met there, and it's a restaurant, so serving food and making coffees pretty hectic over there during the summer. So we learned we can work close to each other pretty semi-seamlessly.
Yeah, they serve Cafe Moto there. We're pretty big fans of, and that's probably where the addiction of coffee began. I think we were both in school. He went to SDSU, I went to UCSD, but we were both working and schooling pretty much full time throughout that process. So caffeine was necessary.
Yeah, you drink a lot of coffee when you work in a restaurant. It's pretty insane.
So you're drinking a lot of coffee, but was there ever kind of a moment where you're like, this is more interesting and I want to start digging into this?
Yeah. I mean, I think I would always get
Definitely.
really jealous of the people that would come in and drink coffee and sit down. And, and I kind of wanted to enjoy that for myself. So,
Yeah, we kind of joked about it for a long time, and we said, "Oh man, it'd be really nice to just be on the opposite end of this, of just not serving it all day." Like we actually really enjoyed working in the restaurant industry, but I think once we started to drink really good coffee, we started to realize, like, man, this would be really cool to make this, and we kind of joked around with it for a couple of years. I moved to LA for a couple of years, and when I came back, we kind of just decided, let's do this. Let's
yeah.
and we read about it. We're kind of self-taught, and we're still self-teaching.
We still read about it.
Learning all the
still
time.
have the coffee atlas and coffee roaster handbook.
Yeah,
we'll always be learning and finding new coffees and whatnot. And just making a coffee drink, lattes and cappuccinos and stuff is really fun. And can't wait to do that more in the future. Future of VCR.
Am I understanding you guys right in saying that you moved to LA when you came back, you're like, let's do this, but it wasn't like you guys were roasting before that?
Nope.
Kinda...
We've been talking about it for years. We had never roasted before.
Interesting. And so you start roasting. How long before you feel like you are doing something that you want to share with other people?
Ooh, like a few months.
I was going to say a year, but...
A year? We started with the Quest. It was a Quest M3 small little roaster. And we would just be giving coffee away constantly to family and friends and trying all sorts of coffees ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just kind of addicting. It was really fun. And that smell is insane. The taste is great. So we kind of haven't stopped. It was awesome.
Now that you are roasting and drinking your own coffee and making your own coffee, do you ever look back at that time at Tartine and think, I did not make a good cup of coffee for those people that were coming into this fancy restaurant in Coronado?
All the time.
For sure.
I really wish I knew more about the coffee that we were serving. Like,
yeah, it was, yeah.
I love Cafe Moto, but I wish I could really, bring their... the origin of their coffees that we were serving to the customers with a little more transparency and knowledge, because we were kind of chickens with our heads cut off.
I was making espressos and lattes at a restaurant in Madison, Wisconsin, and the training was essentially press this button, pull this handle, and then it'll pour out. You can go and make a drink while you're waiting. And that was the end of our training.
Oh, wow.
And I remember now, later in life, I think, God, I feel so sorry for all of those people that came in to drink coffee every Sunday. What about the branding? You've got great branding with the visitor name, VCR for shorthand, which I love. Where did that come from? What does it mean? What's kind of the vibe?
We had, the lists of different names that we came up with. Some just terrible, terrible names.
Pretty comical. We had...
Well, no, we don't need to go into detail. They're bad.
Give us one.
Most of the bad ones are from me. What do we have? See the Wild, but C was SEA with a comma. Then it's so dumb. It was Portugal the Man is a band we really like. So we're like, oh, we're probably listening to that.
Yeah, it's just some bad combinations of things, but we in a humorous way.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of no, yes, no, definitely not.
Yeah,
and then we kind of had this day where we're like, okay, we need to figure this out. We need to figure out what we want our brand to represent, right? And we sat down with our girlfriends, my now wife, and we were discussing what we want our brand to represent and what works for a name. And we sat outside, we had a table, we had Post-its everywhere with all these different things, probably countless beers and bottles of wine going through, just discussing things, lots of back and forth. And, visitor has a couple different meanings for us, but it's, we're very into nature. And we're also very into kind of sci-fi type things. And so it kind of has a double meaning in the sense of, we look at where humans are on this planet, and we're kind of doing a few not so great things, a few destructive things, especially when it comes to nature, and kind of seems like we're almost a visitor here, not really in our natural state, And so we kind of grasped onto that, and we also kind of just used that as a sci-fi alien presence as well, which we are kind of digging into with some of the aesthetics, and kind of leaning into that. We really lucked out with some friends who are really good at art and typography and whatnot.
Yeah, I love the branding in
Sure.
general. I'm going to share some of that in the newsletter that goes out. There's a newsletter for anyone who listens to the show. And now that you're up and running, you guys are only wholesaling online, right?
We are, yeah. We sell at a store in Coronado as well, but predominantly, yeah, e-commerce. We've got a subscription following, Coffee Club, we call it. But yeah, just wholesale online at the moment.
And how did you get the word out that you were selling? I mean, without like having a storefront or some sort of presence before that. It's great to start roasting, but then you got to like let people know, right?
Yeah.
What did you guys do to get it out there?
Yeah, social media is huge. We're still kind of learning, how to fully take advantage of that for sure. But word of mouth, social media, family, friends, yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. So yeah, and we both grew up in a small town, Coronado and Imperial Beach. We roast in Imperial Beach right now. Telling everyone we know.
Yeah.
So every single human that I know.
Is there a future where there's a VCR cafe?
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And
Yeah.
we hope that sooner than later. Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of exciting thoughts in our heads about that. So
I'm sure they're in the Post-it notes on the table
yeah,
outside.
Absolutely.
honestly, I think they might be.
How long have you guys been around? How long have you been selling or like officially roasting and as a business?
So we started on June 7th.
Yeah, June 7th.
June 7th of 2020. And we happened to coincidentally do that on National VCR Day.
Coincidentally?
Well, we were going to do it, and then we realized a week later it was VCR Day. So that's when we decided, we're like, let's make it work. Yeah.
There's a day for everything.
Yeah. There's a day for everything.
June 7th of 2020, we're like 2.5 months into the pandemic,
Yeah.
3 months. Were you like going, you know what, we got to get this going because who knows what's going to happen? Or were you thinking, you know what, we're on the tail slide. This is going to be over soon. Let's launch now so we're ready to take advantage. Do you remember what that feeling was like?
I think we were kind of playing a waiting game for a while as to when we should officially launch. And since we're not, lucky is not the right word, but we were selling just online. And I think we were all kind of digging the making coffee at home aspect. We figured like we should just go for it. It's a little different than having a cafe, because it's still pretty brutal. It's an ongoing process dealing with the pandemic and whatnot. So
there's, no matter what's going on, there's no real good time to start a business.
Yeah.
And, we had already put a bunch of money into it, and we just decided we're going to do this, and we did it, and the plan was the plan to start the business was well before the pandemic, obviously.
Yeah.
But the timing was just had to happen. We just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to do it.
Were you both working elsewhere full-time or part-time at the time?
We both still work full-time day jobs.
Yeah. And then we roast at night.
Yeah.
That's something that I think a lot of people that listen to this show that maybe aren't entrepreneurs that just love coffee don't think about or don't realize. I think just entrepreneurship in general is people are always doing jobs to follow that passion. Those things don't just turn over overnight. And
yeah,
it's a tough transition of knowing, okay, when do I can't go full in yet because I'm not making enough money, but if I don't go all in, I'm never going to make enough money,
Right.
Yeah.
So I know you guys are probably working through that. Something I was really excited to talk to you guys about, which is music. And on your website, you link to mixtapes, which I'm old enough to have actually made mixtapes and burned CDs.
Same.
Oh yeah.
I like that there's something that like constraining your choices down to like 10, 12, 15 songs. How does music influence kind of like what you guys do and your brand? It seems like it's really important to you guys.
So the quick on the mixtape aspect, it's important to note most of the playlists are only 80 minutes long or less because that is the length of a recordable CD.
Mm-hmm.
And what we could do when we were doing the playlists on discs back in the day. So, I mean, you and I probably are around the same age, believe it or not. Definitely did the mixtapes as well.
I remember 45-minute TDK tapes,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
would put a little piece of tape over it, and I'd record right off the radio
Yep.
and try to get the whole song.
And not get any of the commercials.
They would ruin it because they'd cut in, right? 15 seconds to
I
go.
know.
And it's like, if I'm not going to get this whole Us 3 song, this week, I'm going to shoot myself.
I don't even think I know what you guys are talking about.
Oh, Will and I are a few years apart, so
I just ripped off LimeWire and gave CDs to my mom.
yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
But I thought I had a career in that. I was addicted. So
There was one guy in Pennsylvania, I think, made a career out of that.
Yeah.
He became a huge musician. But back to the question, which is how does music kind of influence you guys and what you guys are doing with your coffee company?
Oh man, I don't know what I'd do without music. I'm kind of surrounded by it all day. We listen to it while we roast. We're in a tiny little room roasting with stacks of green beans all over us, and we just kind of blast music. I don't know. Music keeps you going. It's a good outlet. Kind of. I can go all day about music.
It's also,
I don't know.
wow. So we have a good overlap of music. We also have quite a few differences. So it's always kind of funny to see who gets to the shop first and who gets to plug in the music. And sometimes Will walks in and it's Rage Against the Machine and Run the Jewels.
I'll say I like it. I don't necessarily like it.
But
or
then,
you'll come in and I'll be,
and it's just Kevin Morby
having a couple tears rolling down my face listening to Kevin Morby or Bon Iver.
Yeah. So
it's a race. Yeah.
But we listen to a lot of music. We're constantly throwing each other new artists and whatnot, and we'd be lying if we said we liked everything that we both listen to, but there are quite a few, we've gone to so many shows, we've gone to festivals together, way before we started a business. Obviously there's no festivals since, there's been a few.
I guess there are now, but
no, music is key.
We kind of forged our relationship a lot at like late nights at the Casbah and Soda Bar and stuff like that, and that's become a huge part of our lives. So it's just awesome. I think we've seen Future Islands together quite a bit. And
I saw Modest Mouse last night.
You saw what?
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think music's just a big part of our duo of Visitor, I guess, in a way. So
I think that's part of hospitality too, is that going out after everyone else has gone out.
Accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Whether your restaurant closes at 10 or 12 or 2, there's always somewhere for hospitality staff. It might go till 5. It doesn't matter.
Completely.
So true.
You're on a different timeline than other people. And when I used to work in the restaurant industry and my wife worked in a bank, it was kind of like we would just pass each other and see each other, a couple times a week. And never really kind of know what the other one was doing. What about as far as the coffee that you guys are working on now? What is your philosophy since you're both roasting?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have a way that you treat your coffee? Is there a shop philosophy on this roast is going to be this way? I mean, who takes the lead on that, or how do you guys sort that out?
It varies. It definitely varies per the green bean that we have, but we kind of try to let the beans speak for themselves in a way. We roast everything. I don't even know if you can use like light, medium, or dark as proper terminology, but everything is kind of borderline light to medium. We try to get, all the flavors out, and not everyone digs that, or not everyone is really used to that, we've realized, but we're doing our part. We use Inter-American Coffee as a trader, so we get coffees from there, try a bunch of different samples and whatnot, and eventually we'd love to go to the farms, but we just try to let the coffee speak for themselves. We've got, I think, 5 or 6 single origins right now that we love, and we have one espresso roast that is probably
definitely the darkest
the darkest, more of like a medium. It's not dark by any means, but just try to let the coffee kind of dictate its flavors themselves. We don't really change it, I guess, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, they're all different. We roast them all different.
Yeah, we do. But kind of back to the question about who decides, like we definitely both decide. It's definitely a game of trial and error when we're trying to figure out. We're like, oh man, that was a little bitter on that last roast, or this stuff's looking a little too blonde than what we're actually trying to go for, and we try and find the right flavor for the right bean, and you definitely don't get that on the first try.
No, a lot of cupping sessions, which we've grown to love.
Yeah.
I think I have a challenge for you that just kind of that popped into my head. I think you need to take the same green bean and roast it to Rage Against the Machine, and then that same bean and roast it to say like Portugal the Man or Bon Iver,
Yeah.
and see how it tastes. But keep the roast the same, but just change the music and see if it influences your bean.
Music might be the dictator.
I
That
am
might be
definitely down to try
Yeah,
that.
right?
Absolutely.
I think if we played us some Bon Iver, we may just never, never,
just never roast.
It would
It
never
would just
end.
sit in green state.
And I just end up on the floor.
Bon Iver is for the coffee when it's raining outside.
Absolutely.
That's kind
Perfect.
of the vibe.
Cafe vibes, as they call it.
Actually, Justin Vernon, who's
Uh-huh.
Bon Iver, and I went to college together.
What?
Oh, that's awesome.
No freaking way.
After he left school and he went to go write that album in some farm in North Carolina somewhere, and I went off, and my wife and I were trying to find jobs, and it had probably been a year since we had seen each other, and I was in a record shop in Madison, Wisconsin, where I still live, and I heard this kind of high pitched voice over the music, and it's like, God, that sounds so familiar, but I don't recognize it, because in college he was like blues and deep, kind of a deep blues voice. Like he's got another band called the Shouting Matches, kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I asked the guy at the counter, and I was like, hey, who is this? And he just gave me this like disgusted hipster look, and was like, oh, you don't know? Like, it's Bon Iver. And I was like, yeah, I guess, I don't know. Like, I haven't been paying attention. And I went home and Googled it, and I was like,
Him.
that guy, I know that guy. I like wanted to go back to the record store and like, point in that guy's face.
I know that dude.
This pretentious calling you out.
I was like, he and I got drunk during our Buddhist final together. Like, I know that guy.
Yeah. That's so funny.
So what is something, you've talked about working in the hospitality industry, but now that you're in coffee, what is something that's kind of surprised you guys, or something that you've learned over the last year or so, kind of the hard way? I mean, with your process as you're kind of getting through it.
I'd say I'm lucky to, have Seth as part of this half, because dealing with the numbers and finances and stuff like that, I'm not the best with numbers and organization at all. Seth is very good at that.
That's not true.
Yeah. But as far as, that whole side of it, the not fun part, roasting is great. It's amazing. It's fun. It's like a science, but yeah, as far as the e-commerce and financials, not the most fun.
What about you, Seth?
It's just a constant learning experience when it comes to coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great doing it with someone else. Seriously. Like, you get to bounce ideas off each other. You get to have arguments. I mean, like, no one wants to have arguments with yourself, I mean, like, I do it sometimes, but...
Last night in an email, I used empathize when I should have used sympathize, and I was up arguing with myself about it all night. So I get that.
Yeah.
You do have kind of a unique thing going on where you are partners who are also seemingly equal roasters, is what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I've interviewed anyone else. This will be the 45th or 46th interview on the show, or 40th episode of the show, who has kind of that equal partnership for roasting. So that's interesting that you guys kind of have that push and pull back and forth. Is that something when you start going into that expansion where let's say you have a shop 6 months or a year from now,
Yeah.
do you anticipate that staying the same or falling into different roles? Have you guys talked about that?
We have not talked about that, but I would imagine it's going to be pretty similar.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean,
the reality is too, there are some times when one of us can't make it to the shop. Right. And so the beauty of it is that, we have this trust in each other. It's like, well, I know that you're going to be able to make the beans, roast the beans the way they need to be roasted and get the orders done and do it that way. And I think a lot of it is because, since we started, we're constantly looking over each other's shoulders.
Yeah.
And not so much in of like, dude, are you serious right now? But more so like, what are you doing over there? Like, should okay, I see. Oh yeah. Okay. It's like I said, it's a back and forth learning process. And I think for, as long as this company goes, which we hope forever,
we'll keep the small scale, kind of small scale motivation there.
I really don't see either of us becoming like lead roaster over the other. It's co-manager and co-manager.
Co-manager. Yeah. I mean, eventually that could change, but in our vision right now, we can handle that. It's just late nights roasting, just the two of us.
Yep.
Roasting and packaging.
Yeah, I'm not trying to start any sort of drama here, but I was just looking at my bag of
No.
I've got your Rebel blend here, and I was looking to see if it said brewed by Seth on it, or roasted by Seth on it, roasted by Will.
Packaged by Will, roasted by Seth.
Yeah. I could decide. I could say, oh, that's the one I want.
Right. No, it's true. No, you don't have that option with us.
I'm sure there's a million other things, but I'm wondering, is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted people to know about VCR?
We just want more people to try our coffee, for sure. Put our name out there. Get in different cafes, different shops, anything. We're a small operation, but we love to stay up all night and roast coffee. So, sacrifice sleep, we're willing to.
You're selling online. Are there any cafes that are serving your coffee?
Not at the moment. No.
Okay. So, but by the time this show airs in a few weeks, we're gonna find a cafe that we can send it to.
We would love that.
Phenomenal, yeah.
Yeah, now that cafes are kind of opening up a little more, I feel like, we're at a good stage right now where we've kind of been focusing on us for a bit, selling online. Now we can venture into the cafe world a little easier, a little smoother. So
I'm assuming you brought some coffee to the band last night, Modest Mouse?
You should have.
I probably should have.
Should have chucked it.
I know.
You could have thrown it up on stage.
Right?
I know. Well, it was at SDSU, so I should have it could have thrown it. I would have had the benefit of gravity. So
we just had our coffee. A couple bands have tried it.
Last question. I ask everyone that I talk to this, but when you guys are out and about getting your own coffee from a different cafe, what is it that you're getting to drink? Like, what's your go-to?
I just look at their newest single origin offerings and go from there. Usually trust a barista's words and be like, hey, what are you liking right now? Because it's all going to be good. I trust all the local roasters in town to see what they like. Order it. I'm not too picky. Drink it black. So.
Yeah, depending on lately summer, it's cold brew. I drink a lot of cold brew or iced Americanos. Realistically, it's hard for me to drink hot coffee when it's in the middle of the day.
Keeps you cooler, though. That's what they say.
I don't care.
It's like soup.
Does it really? I have not heard that.
You drink hot soup when it's hot. Well, you eat hot soup when it's hot.
Sounds terrible.
And I don't even think it's funny to joke about because I had actually gotten ice packs out to put on my lap since I'm here in the hot podcast booth, but I forgot them on the counter, so they're sitting out there, and I'm just baking in here. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show, and I'm excited to try more of your coffee. I've tried the Rebel Blend and the Ethiopia, which I really enjoyed. I've been drinking it as a French press that I then run through a filter.
Nice.
Great.
Which I think I prefer, actually, even though it's kind of a pain. But I'm excited to see what you guys are going to come up with next.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having us. We're stoked.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Okay, to recap, there is a lot of new business energy coming from Visitor. Sitting across, at least virtually across, from Seth and Will as they talk about their plans for VCR is a very different vibe and experience than sitting with, say, Steve Rail, who has 2 decades in at Zoombar Coffee and Tea. During the show, they mentioned the dual meaning of visitor as their name, a reference to humans being visitors on Earth and in nature, and their interest in the possibility that visitors from other worlds could visit us here on Earth. I recently was chatting with a much wiser individual than me who mentioned that our time on Earth is like a visit, and the things that we think we own, be it land or a favorite coffee mug, are really just temporary events. His suggestion? To spend more of this visit on experiences. And that felt like good advice, both in life and with coffee. And it leads into the idea that Seth and Will spent months or even a year working on their roasting skills before feeling good enough, before feeling confident enough about sharing their efforts with people, even though they were probably sharing them all along. Even now, they've continued to learn and hone their craft, just as we are all learning to turn our interactions with coffee into better experiences at home and at the coffee shop. Thanks for putting in some time with me today to create a wider coffee community and hopefully a better coffee experience. Speaking of learning about coffee, I have a few coffee vocab terms for you today. Starting with terroir. It's a word you hear in wine, and you're going to be hearing it in some upcoming episodes of this show. From the French word terre, it means land or earth, and when related to coffee, it is referencing how the geography, the climate, and the geology, the actual soil and rocks, impact a coffee's unique taste. Accomplished coffee tasters can even identify where a coffee is from based on the regional characteristics found in coffees from the same place. That's pretty wild. Our second term is a type of drink we haven't discussed much on the show and is also compliments of the French. Café au lait, spelled A-U space L-A-I-T, not lait like the chips, is just a coffee with hot milk poured into it. Au lait is just French for with milk. That is all for this episode of the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast. Thanks to Seth and Will for coming on the show today. If you want to know what the guys are listening to while they roast coffee, head to visitorcoffeeroasters.com/mixtapes. And while you're there, check out their online shop. Or head to roastwestcoast.com where I'll link to the mixtapes, the World Atlas of Coffee, and more of the fun stuff that came up during the show. This Thursday's Coffee Smarter episode, which comes out on Thursday, is a great one and covers a huge topic. Jay Ruskey of Fringe Coffee returns this season as a Coffee Smarter expert to chat with us about climate change and how it impacts farming and coffee. I almost can't wait to share that episode with you, but I will. It's coming out in a couple of days. This week I stopped to get a coffee at Mostra Coffee's newest location, Forest Ranch, where even early in the morning a line of fans were awaiting their newest release. I also need to shout out Maria Coffee, First Light Coffee Whiskey, Leap Coffee, Café Laterre, Zumbar Coffee and Tea, Steady State Roasting, Coffee Cycle, Camp Coffee Company, and Cape Horn Coffee Importers for supporting this show. As always, also a thanks to you for listening and for sharing the show with your friends. You can check out all of the Roast industry partners on roastwestcoast.com, where you can also subscribe to the coffee newsletter and never miss an episode. This episode of the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast has been written, produced, and recorded by me, Ryan Wolt. I hope this show has found you happy, healthy, and with at least enough sanity to make it through the day. And please, always tip your baristas and be sure to drink good coffee.